you please put your hands together for Aaron Ryder?
It was 1995, and I had moved to Hollywood, California to pursue a starving artist career that I've heard so much about, and it sounded adventurous, so I thought I would give it a try. And I was living in my car. I had driven my 1970 Ford Torino. It was golden, and it had those blinking eyelid headlights. And I filled the car full of everything that I owned. The back seat was full, the trunk was full, and I was dragging the bumper all the way down to California. And with sparks, every time I hit a bump, it would spark. So I was living in this car, and I was taking spit baths in gas stations and hosing off in the random hoses in front of houses. And I got a job doing sheet metal construction, as I always had. And I had saved $900 for me to get some sort of a place to rent somewhere. And then the best place for me that I knew of to save this $900 was in the glove box. So there's my $900 in the glove box. And I thought, I'm just driving around Hollywood, and I thought, you know, all of a sudden, I got this raging boner. And imagine that, right? So I'm driving my raging boner around town, and I'm looking for various different alleyways and whatnot, and I spent about an hour or so looking for some place for me to take care of my boner. And then I got this crazy idea that I had never paid for sex. And I thought, well, I had the time, I had the money, I had the car, I was living in Hollywood, and I had a boner. So it was a perfect making for me to go out into the world and seek a vagina. So I'm traveling around town, and I'm noticing there's 3 different streets. Each one of them has their own particular flavor of, let's call them minglers. And one street was Santa Monica Boulevard. At this time, there was cis male. And on Sunset Boulevard, there was cis female. And on the other street, Hollywood Boulevard, there was everything in between. And I was not prepared for everything in between. I had come from a traditional family and was not schooled in this sort of what I was about to embark in. So I was driving around with me and my boner for another 2 hours or so looking for something. And you can imagine the intensity that has been building up, right? So I looked off into the distance, and I saw a crowd there was about 20 of these tall, beautiful, sexy women. And I thought, I had hit the jackpot. I had found my vagina. So I'm slowly traveling up to this crowd, and I noticed the first person that came to me, she was tall, she was beautiful, she had a full head of hair, long fingernails, a red mini skirt, and matching high heel shoes, and an Adam's apple. And I wasn't prepared for the Adam's apple. So I rolled the window down, and she says, "Hi, my name is Shaniqua. What can I do for you?" I said, "Well, I am looking for a vagina. And I want to bend her over and mount her from behind. And she says, well, I can do that. I took a breath, I paused, and I looked at her Adam's apple, and I said, I am looking for a vagina. She said, well, what makes you think that I don't have a vagina? I thought, well, maybe she does, I don't know. And then she says, I can take you to the vagina. And I thought, this is perfect. I've hit the jackpot. She knows people. She has a stash of vaginas. So I said, get in. So she gets in. She has these long, beautiful, sexy legs. They were bouncing up against my glove box with all my life savings in it. I was super scared. I was scared. I was scared, but I had a boner. So it was okay. So we proceeded about a half mile or so from there up into this neighborhood, and it appeared to be this neighborhood was in the blackout or something. Everything seemed to be dark. The street was dark, the dead end was dark, the 4-story apartment building was dark, the hallway was dark, the stairs were dark. We walked into a room that was dark, but it had a candle in the corner, which I was sure was going to reveal a room full of vaginas for me to choose from. That's not what happened. That's not what I saw. What I saw was a studio apartment with a curtain on one side and a bookshelf. And that was it. So she says, you stand here, take your pants off, put this condom on, and you will have your vagina. This was so exciting. So then she proceeded to go behind the curtain. She goes behind the curtain, and I'm listening intently for the voices of vaginas. And I hear no vaginas. But okay, I'm here. So I stood there for what seemed to be like the longest 60 seconds of my life. I had that raging kind of boner, you know, the one that bounces with your heartbeat. Even when you're relaxed, boom, 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 boom. And then from behind the curtain comes a figure. I wasn't sure who the figure was. I thought, could this be Shaniqua? It looked like Shaniqua. It could be. But it also could be this vagina that we talked about. So she bent over backwards like this and shimmied back towards me. She grabbed me with those long arms and grabbed me and pulled me into something. It was warm, it was wet, it was slippery, even with the day-old shaving stubble. It was awesome. And it was over with in about 4 seconds. So she stands up, turns around, looks at me, and says, "That'll be $50, please." And then my nervous boner turned into limp weenie because I was so scared because I'd left all my money in the glove box. And I said, okay, well, let's go get the money and I'll give you a ride back. And so I cleaned up And we left. I gave her a ride back to her corner, and that was an experience that I will never forget. So back then, in 1995, after this had happened, I was super caught up in where my dick may have went. And the more time goes on, the more I realize how much that doesn't matter. And I don't know how she identified, so I don't know where it went, and I still don't know. And so how has this affected me sexually? Well, since then, I've experienced a lot of sexuality since then because of all of this. And I've lived some of the fantasies that most people don't get a chance to, and for that I've been blessed in many ways. But I have never had a dick in my ass. And back then, the reason why I had never had a dick in my ass was because of what you would think of me. But today, I don't have a dick in my ass because maybe I'm not attracted to men. And that's okay. But I still have never had a dick in my ass. So today, I suppose my ass and I am open. So if you were to ask me how I identify today sexually, I would say I am curious about being bi-curious.